I was like, I kind of know this is all I need is roommates.
Well, I guess yeah, I don't think we. All right, hello everyone. Thank you all for coming back this week, and good to see you all again. We're gonna get kicked off with attendance real quick, so I'll pass it over to Olivia.
Okay. Everybody, I'm just going to do last names. Becker.
Here.
McGehee.
Okay.
Pope. Here. Wormand.
Here.
Garrett.
Here.
Meek.
Here.
Giardino.
Here. Perfect.
I'm Keem.
Here.
Glenn. Here. Lawson.
Yep, or here.
McIntyre. Klein. Works. Here. Thomas. Here. And Haynes. Okay, that's it.
All right, sweet.
Oh, sorry. One more thing. Sorry. Any guests in the room that I did not call? Can I get your name?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. With that, thank you to everyone who sent in questions and following our meeting last week. I've passed those along to Dr. Archuleta, and I'll let you take it away from there.
Okay. So is the best format just to kind of go through
Yeah.
questions?
You might read the question too. That'd be great.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. So the first question was, what was the amount of additional scholarships added this last year, and what amount of those prioritized being needs-based in the Memorandum of Understanding filed with the K-State Foundation? So actually, it was easier to look at this. Over the last 2 years, we've raised $80,000 in scholarships to support new students to K-State. And those are all donor-driven scholarships with more like merit-based MOUs. And that's because that's what the donors are requesting.
Yeah. No, it's the same comment I made in the previous, but for the students that weren't in that one. In development, they're fond of saying the donors get 51% of the vote when they start giving money to what it goes to. And so it's a pretty standard way of doing it. Now we do, going forward, whenever possible, we try to keep them as open-ended as possible so that we can have that flexibility.
Okay. Moving on to the
Yeah,
second.
so I'll take the second question because I was the one that sort of not sort of, but I know I triggered this question last time. So could you elaborate on the statement that we had PFP scholarships that we couldn't give to anyone? So that was more of an example of a situation when I was trying to illustrate that sometimes it's not, enrollment management isn't as simple as saying it's too expensive to go here, that's why enrollment went down, and if we just had additional scholarships, we would solve that problem. And so I was just highlighting one example that I had come across recently in my own college where I actually had scholarships. I just didn't have a student to give it to in the PFP program. Now that has changed. This year we gave them all out. So that was the root of that comment. It wasn't any larger point I was trying to make other than an example of that. So.
Okay. Number 3, which was, can you provide justification or data for the amount of the proposed increase? I understand the breakdown of where it will go. Based on the current situation, in my eyes, it seems a bit excessive without having any more information on how they determine these priorities. So just clarification of what this person wrote, which is year 1. Appoint 6/10 instructor, or 6/10 instructor, not a 0.6 instructor. 1 grad assistant. In year 2, 1 instructor plus 2 grad assistants. In year 3, 2 instructors plus 1 grad assistant. So this was a little bit of a confusing kind of question to us because we initially said we really need a $50 course fee to support 2 instructors because we're down faculty, and we need that help. So I guess my question to this question was, it seems a bit excessive. What seems I'm not for sure who
So,
wrote the question, I'm
I
sorry.
might be able to elaborate because I tried to rewrite the question a little better.
Okay.
But I think what they were trying to get is how do you determine the priority of 2 faculty members?
Okay.
And maybe elaborate a little bit on that. Are there specific bottlenecks and things like that that may be holding things up
Okay,
there?
I wasn't for sure if that by the fee or by the faculty.
Yeah,
So-
part of that I rewrote, part of that I just copied and pasted because, yeah.
Okay, so technically we are down 1.5 faculty members currently from last year. So we have 1.5 less than we did last year. So we are modge-podging billing classes with instructors. And then also by year 3, we really anticipate, we've already seen growth, we anticipate more growth. Some of our courses are almost at capacity. So if we grow much more, we're gonna have to add additional sections to those courses.
So when you, this is just a question, this wasn't my question originally, but since you're down a faculty member and a half, did those positions go away completely, or are you right now in the search process for people to fill those?
No, that's a really great question, and I apologize for that. I've got a candidate on campus for a program right now, and that's what that text was about. We did 0 tenure track searches this year, 0. So anybody that left last year, we didn't replace them because that was the only way I was going to be able to come up with the money to give back to the university that we were going to have the shortfall. So we've hired a few non-tenure track people, but none of the core faculty that make these programs go were replaced, and that's the situation we are. We hope that next year that may change, but it would be lying if I said that I thought it was going to change next year, or that I have any indication that there's going to be new revenue that we can hire people.
So the budget model change could impact. I guess that's one of the things we just don't know yet,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's just so early, but that ideally is revenue will go directly back to the program, so it could have an impact.
Yeah, it could. I think,
just don't know.
We don't know, and I think the other aspect of that is there certainly are programs that are more expensive to deliver, and should there be differential tuition? Is this an example where there should be differential tuition? I mean, we can have that debate. I think these students here, I don't want to get them in a competition where I start calculating the time value of money with them, because they would do it a lot better than I will. But that's one of the questions. You start talking about ROI and investment in education, what it is. And I think you have to weigh that. And I think students are weighing that when they pick majors in terms of future employment and earning potential and all that sort of stuff. I think the one thing the PFP program has going for it, and you can certainly elaborate on it if you want to provide specific examples, is that they do have tremendous opportunities with that degree, and a fairly high earning potential relatively quickly upon graduation.
Okay. Are you ready to move on?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so the last question was, what is the reasoning behind hiring one graduate assistant to tutor multiple upper level courses versus hiring upperclassmen that have proven success in a specific course as student workers? Is there a higher cost benefit for the salary of one grad assistant to multiple student workers? So I think you can look at this a couple of different ways, but if you have one grad assistant that somebody can go to, they already have expertise, they already have a bachelor's degree, they probably already have the necessary skills and knowledge to cover multiple courses in order to provide that effective tutoring. And so they're a grad assistant on campus, probably part of what they're hoping to gain from experience, or even if they're at a distance grad assistant, either way you look at it, they're probably looking for that tutoring and I'm gonna call it quote unquote teaching experience that they can provide to students. And the grad students in the room can probably speak to that.
Certainly, I mean, I am the resident grad student for the program, the only one, right? And so part of that has been the fact that I've had to teach and do research. And in one sense, perhaps you could hire a upperclassman to do some of it, but that's only for the underclassmen work. Now, the students that are taking the case studies and the taxes, they're the upperclassmen, and they need someone to go to. And who can they go to? They can go to someone like myself who's been in industry and knows how to do the work and provide them with that relevant information. And that way it takes time away from the faculty so they can then go out and do some of the scholarship and recruitment efforts that they do, as well as tailor some of the coursework. So I think having a designated grad student to provide that would be beneficial for both the grad student who needs the teaching and tutoring experience to be able to say, hey, this is the stuff that I've done. It's my time as a grad student to make me that stronger candidate when I go to search for a faculty position.
I personally think a grad student filling this role would probably be the best choice, just because, with that industry experience, that's like if they're trying to help us with a capstone course. I mean, an undergraduate student that's not something that they're going to be able to help us with. These are like complex cases that we're getting real industry experience could really help us with. So.
That was the last question I had on my sheet anyway.
Okay, sweet. Are there any further questions that any members in the room have on the fee proposal? Or on anything at all?
Gonna get warm?
That's the question we're all asking.
So if I can just provide a clarifying point that it's not intended to be debate-like or a question, just kind of information for the group that I feel like might be good when you're for both of you that are still here. So a couple of years ago, when I was a freshman, this committee discussed when we started having multi-year plans that would come forward. I think it's particularly engineering and business that both started to present plans like that. There was a lot of discussion within SGA about allowing the Tuition Fee Strategies Committee to make multi-year recommendations. Ultimately, after a lot of discussion, that idea failed the group because we found a lot of value in evaluating things on a year-to-year basis. And so I say that, first of all, that the recommendation this year is solely on year one, that it's not binding, which next year's group, if the fee is not passed this year, next year's group can still pass it or cannot pass it. And if this does pass, next year's group can still pass it or not pass it. It truly is every year's a new year. I think that's a really good way to look at things. I would also challenge everybody here to focus on that first year. I think that the context, of course, is incredibly important. We appreciate you and all your work and putting that together. I know that takes a lot of work on the strategic planning side of things, but for us, I guess in here, that would be my kind of guiding comment would be to please keep the focus on the first year, because that's what we're discussing. Trey.
Yeah, my comment on that is it creates a lot of transparency in terms of like your intentions as an administrator and how you plan to move forward, which the committee really appreciates and is really grateful for you giving us an outlook and not returning engineering year after year after year with an increase. So
surprise, we're back.
we appreciate that, but then again, I would encourage the committee and the CTC who will be here next year that just because you started phase one of a 3-phase fee doesn't mean that you have to continue with all 3 phases. There are caveats on both sides, I think, that are really important to understand moving forward.
We look at something like engineering, 5-year plan, passed first 2 years, didn't pass third year, and then passed fourth year. So that's a perfect example of the way in which every year is a new year. So that's part of my thing is that when we come back with a decision to say we voted yes or no, that's going to be solely on the first one. But thanks so much.
That was my understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just want to clarify that so everybody's on the same page. Questions?
If there's no further questions for Dr. Archuleta or Dean Buckwalter, thank you so much for coming.
I'm going to leave now.
Don't forget your vote.
0. Somewhere between 10 and 0 and 13.
It ended up at 13.
Okay, it ended up at 13. That's a email post. So
Oh, very good. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
We got one more email on to send it.
Yes, that's nice. Thank you. Well,
But
you
I'll
probably
let you
should
know
send it
that
anyway,
so there.
that's good news. I appreciate you.
Yeah. There's not that schedule for this time. First one has two extra.
Open if you don't mind. So thank you. Hot in here. Thank you. I can get it.
For free to.
All right. What does everybody think?
I'm ready to vote.
Elaborate on what we're thinking, or
Yeah.
I guess like from a student standpoint, and maybe to help in future propositions of tuition increase, we as students had already been informed, and we have been brought together and questioned everything we've sat through the last 2 weekends. And I'm not going to say my last 2 hours out of 2 weeks was super important, but we've already been through all of this. We've been able to ask these questions as far as our faculty came to us. Hey, here's what we want to impose. We had an 89% between undergraduate, grad students, and PhD students that agreed, said willing, if not 100% for sure, I would back this proposal. So for me personally, I think that these last 2 weeks weren't pointless, but as far as I'm educated and I understand, these last 2 weeks were for us students to be educated and for all of you guys to ask questions to better inform us whether we're making a decision that's best and best for us as students, if that makes sense. So I don't think there's a debate on the table. You guys, nothing against anyone here in this room, but don't know our program and what it means to any of us. I think an 89% overall poll of people willing to back this tuition increase is
That was for the $50.
phenomenal. Yeah, not only for the 3-year phase-in, that was for the $50.
And that wasn't a phase-in. They were like, yeah,
That
we'll
was
pay
$50
$50.
starting next year. Hey, let's do it. Because I think it goes back to just me personally from Southeast Iowa. Don't care about K-State, never heard about K-State, but I get pointed in this direction solely because of this program. If you don't sustain, if not improve this program, you're not going to see people like me come into this program. And like they mentioned in last week's meeting, it's a hell of a lot harder to bring a program that was up here and crash to bring it back up here than it is to keep it where it's at. So that's kind of my opinion on it, if you want me to elaborate a little bit. I don't know what you're looking at, but I just think, again, I think looking at future, I agree with the phase-in process. And we did include underclassmen on a discussion and what's going on, because we have seniors in the room that I'm not here next year. Why does it matter to me? So I do agree again with that phase-in protocol, but at the same time, is there a way we could eliminate as students in SGA this 2-week process that we just went through? For as far as I'm concerned, was kind of pointless.
Yeah. So Trent, one second, I'm going to kind of respond to that. So a couple things I think that are important to kind of realize why the group is created. It's because looking back on history of a couple of years ago, like I mentioned, we had a lot of discussion as to how we can better be, I guess, advocates for students. One of the things that's come up in the past couple of years is you've had colleges that have gone out and gotten a lot of support from students for a fee, and then it's came to the tuition fee strategy committee. We've discussed the merits of it and looked holistically at how the fee would interact with tuition increases, right? So if we know that there's a big tuition increase on the table, or I guess any tuition increase on the table, how does that interact with the fee? And so we had a lot of really robust discussions about that, about pretty much what Stephen is sitting here for today, which is low-income students, students with a lot of high financial need. And, based on those conversations and those discussions have made, a vote on the fee, and it has in times gone against kind of the vote of the college groups, whatever that college group may be. I don't, it's different across the board, of course. And so the reason why we brought this group together is to not ask for support for the fee, but to evaluate the fee and kind of get the sense of what's going on in the college. Mm-hmm. And so I hear you, and that it's a lot of support, and that you support it, and that's excellent. However, I do think that speaking on behalf of tuition and fees, it's very valuable for us to hear a lot of good discussion in here. And what's the kind of backstory behind this? Have your concerns been addressed? And then probably more importantly, has the larger student body that you represent been addressed, and have their concerns been addressed? And is this something that we think is, necessary, not just because it's been, it's proposed by the deans, and there's been kind of this request for support, but is there this need for it? Does that improve your academic experience? Is that going to make you a better, employee, citizen, what have you, and something like that? And so I think there's a lot of value in it, and I think what's going to make the best discussion and best recommendation possible, which ultimately goes to the president for, his approval and such, is a robust discussion that is, hey, we've covered our bases on this. We know that this is either a good idea or not a good idea for students. That's why we supported that. Trent?
Yeah, I would say that I probably agree with you 100%, Jack. I'm sure you feel like you're beating a dead horse at this point, and that it feels really redundant and pointless. But when I was a freshman, the dean of the College of Business came to this committee, proposed a $25 fee increase. And I was in the College of Business, so I was like super gung-ho about the fee. I was ready to rock and roll on it. But come to find out, he didn't hold one open hearing. He brought in a group of 10 students. Not one was multicultural. Not one was a Pell Grant student. And so it's like the scales have tipped from one extreme to now the other, where we've probably got too much input. And I think as, we're a public land grant school that's committed to accessibility. And part of that accessibility means keeping it as cheap as possible. And I think as the scales kind of flow back and forth, we're going to have to find a good mix of like how much student input is enough. But speaking from my experience, it makes the committee's decision a lot easier when you do feel like you're beating a dead horse and when it does feel redundant, because then we'll vote on it to go to the president. And in the eyes of the president, we had an issue last year where the president put forward a fee that the students didn't approve of, and the Board of Regents, who's the larger governing institution, they felt like that student support wasn't there, therefore they weren't going to pass it. And so all of these steps in the process all lead up to that, to our president giving the fee to the Board of Regents, who are older and are really disconnected from higher ed and don't really understand it. And so I think part of it is that we've probably not communicated that big institutional challenge to everyone along in the process. And so I'm sorry that it feels like you're beating a dead horse and that it's redundant. But in terms of moving forward and taking this to the Board of Regents, it's critically important that it does feel like this. And like, this is my 4th year on this committee. I'm honestly kind of tired of coming up with these strategies, but it's a part of the bigger issue, which I think is really important.
And I think the other thing is, what if the flip side was true? What if the deans had presented this and you guys were like, no, that's a terrible fee, we can't support it? This conversation would be a lot different and probably be seemingly a lot more supported. So
yeah,
anyway, I'm not trying to jump here to the Chris. I'm saying that's kind of why the voice matters here.
I think personally why I see it as more so a dead horse is because luckily enough we have the faculty and the professors and the dean that truly care about us and our program. Where you said you were in the College of Business and you had 10 people support the fee. So then where do you draw the fine line? I understand now, but before kind of hearing that side of the story, it was like, all right, this is redundant. Why are we doing this? If that makes sense.
And I don't think it should be easy to get a fee passed. You know what I mean? I think there's some sort of inherent benefit to the fact that it's kind of a pain in the butt to get a fee pass. I think we're doing well for students because of that.
Yeah, we don't want any dean to waltz around campus thinking that at the drop of a hat they could raise a fee on a group of students.
But yeah, I appreciate you saying that though.
Yeah, thank you.
Jake.
I'm gonna stand up because I can't see. So sorry, that's weird. I just kind of had a question for like people in the program, specifically, especially we're hiring on faculty. Are you guys currently experiencing waitlisting? I've really heard a lot of like conversation about inability to get into classes, or like are you facing any types of those challenges?
No,
I can, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think Dr. Archuleta said that like we were about to reach capacity, like we haven't really gotten there yet. So like no, we haven't experienced any of that waitlisting yet because our classes are still pretty small, but we're getting to the point where if our program does grow like it has been, our enrollment has been going up, if it keeps doing that, then we might have to start to add sections in order to stop that from happening.
And from the graduate side, the doctoral is kind of its own little monster, but the master students, they're all at capacity. So they're 25 or 30 students at capacity, and they are waitlist, actually waitlist into the program.
Yeah, especially for the certificate programs that are unique to, financial counseling and therapy.
The financial therapy one that they're talking about.
That isn't any place else in the world, and so it is a wait list to get into that program and those classes, and those faculty won't be able to add additional sections because they're already working at capacity and beyond capacity, really, from what we've seen.
It's a really good question, though.
I mean, faculty can only do so much with their time, and they do so much for us students that they definitely need more assistance with extra teaching help, graduate assistance to help with taking on some of the responsibilities of, tutoring students and doing some research and teaching, which is a good experience for us as grad students because we need it for our resume. It helps us offset our cost of tuition as well because if you're a grad assistant, then you're getting paid. And sometimes.
Not every grad student.
Not every grad
tuition
student.
waiver or pay.
No, I didn't say anything about tuition waiver. I thought everyone got paid.
Oh, sorry.
though.
If you're a grad student, not every graduate student is a GRA, GA, or a GA on campus.
Yeah.
And then there's differences there.
Yeah.
So, okay. Sorry.
But it does. Being a graduate assistant does allow a scholarship for grad students, which we're not allowed to have, like the undergrad students get.
Oh, she's talking about from the outreach that the faculty have been able to do to secure the scholarships. Those have been for undergraduate students, not for graduate students, particularly doctoral students. Our doctoral student it's a different way, right? It's that online via Zoom, so it's still like class. Like I would be in an office right next door to the professors having class, right? So they're teaching me. So it's a little interesting. But then I also being here allowed me to take other courses right on campus. But being a grad assistant here has been interesting. I've been able to see the faculty, right? We all want faculty that are the top in their profession, every school wants that, every student wants that, undergraduate or not. These faculty within the financial planning domain are some of the top faculty, and we see that by the research and how quickly they're churning out doctoral students. And what we're doing with the undergraduates, going to competitions, winning first, second, third places. There is now, when I entered the profession about 10 years ago, there was maybe a handful of financial planning programs. K-State undergrad program is one of them. Now there's I believe it's over 300 undergraduate programs, and only a handful of those in human sciences and services. We're still cranking out top undergraduate teams at competitions at national levels because the faculty are putting in the time and resources it's very costly to do that and provide that. But then they're also cranking out excellent doctoral students who are getting jobs. And there's only 4 universities in the nation that have a PhD program in financial planning. There's only 4. And our students at the graduate level are getting those jobs, which tells you that the faculty are doing their jobs at both the undergraduate and graduate. And I see how stressed they are because now they have this professional network connection thing. They're going to Kansas City. They're going all over the place. They're serving on national boards. And what they're doing is they're trying to create it so that we have networks of jobs available for our students, both undergraduate and graduate, as well as scholarship funding, those donations. And I'll tell you, in the financial planning realm, the people, they're donating to the program, but they're donating in a way because they have a little bit of self-interest. They're donating in a way and they want it to be not needs-based, and I'm sorry, but the donors want it to be merit-based scholars because they want the top and they want to then be able to hire. And so we're seeing that. And we can't control that necessarily. Now, what if you have, and then Steve and I, we've talked about the needs-based, and I absolutely agree about it. So what if there's this extra pool of money left over from those merits, what can we do? And I think we also need to figure out how can we balance that, because I think we do, if we want to grow the program and have incoming freshmen, because that's been a hard issue within the financial planning field. So I'm on my soapbox, cut me off whenever you want, especially but if we want to grow the program, particularly incoming freshmen, we do, and if we want to attract some students, we do need to have some sort of needs-based piece as well. And I wholeheartedly agree. But that's been just a financial planning. Financial planning in the field has been difficult to get people, right? It's one of those majors you kind of find. I didn't find it until I got done with my undergraduate. I went to the University of Iowa, thought corporate finance and corporate accounting were my thing. 6 months of each, I said, no way, that's not what I want to do. And I found financial planning after I graduated. And it's been tremendous. And I think these students have a unique experience because they get to do that as an undergrad. But the profession, rarely do you see students come in as freshmen. And so it's been a difficult challenge. And so that needs-based piece becomes a whole different conversation because you just rarely get students from a undergrad. They're usually transfer students, oftentimes junior and senior. If you have some sophomores, which we do here, that's really cool. And we have a couple of freshmen, which is even better. But the whole thing, I agree. The fee is one thing, and Jack, this committee is, as I said, it's about the protection of the students. And so it's really that. It's have that conversation so we can protect the students, and not just the current students, but the students to come and make it a pro place. So sorry, that's it.
Jake.
Sorry, I'm the horse on the IV drip and the ventilator, so you're gonna have to really beat me until I'm done. So I'm just also curious about for tutoring. Excuse me, I forgot the word. Do you know if you guys offer courses tutoring through like Holtz Hall? Is that currently an option for you, or they're just like GTA and faculty kind of currently are your only avenues for
If you contact the faculty, they will absolutely work with you to get together with you. But like Derek is the GA and he'll meet with any of us. He's teaching one of our classes right now even, and he'll still go out of his way to meet with us.
I just didn't know if you had any like.
I don't think we have like structure.
No. That they have that for some.
There was like maybe the entry level class, but that's not the classes that we're all in. Yeah.
Jordan.
So a lot of the fees that come through here from different colleges, different departments, they're coming because they're at a max capacity in a lot of their undergraduate classes where if you're not getting out of that class, you're not able to take it in sequence or whatever it might be, you're not able to graduate. So it's stopping students from getting to that next level, which is why they need that fee at that time. If at the undergraduate level within this program isn't yet at capacity, do you guys feel like this is the year that you need a fee?
I mean, one thing is that since last spring to this spring, I'm pretty sure our undergraduate program grew 40%. And so if it even grows like close to that number, then we're going to be, not being able to take classes, I would say.
I think you also have to understand that the fact that we're a large major, but we're a small major at that. So we have courses that are only offered in the fall and the spring. So once we are knocking at the door of max capacity, and once we knock at that door, if I can't get in that spring class, I have to wait fall semester and then come back spring semester. So what are we doing then? I'm coming a whole another year. And for me personally, paying out of state tuition, I'm not going to do that. Let's transfer out and go somewhere else, where I can get in Texas Tech, Georgia, Virginia Tech, name the school, and I'll pay out of state tuition there where they have the funds and they have the faculty in the class capacity where I can get in right away. So I don't think it's more so, are we at full capacity? It's how close are we to full capacity and what happens when we get there. Let's prevent a problem before we have a problem. That makes sense?
Well, not only that, it's the opportunity cost for you to have to stay here another year, not be in the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem isn't just can the undergrads get into their classes. We have 3 levels here. We have undergrad, master's, and doctoral students, and these faculty are servicing all of those students. And they only have so much time to spend with each throughout the day for teaching and research and all the extra things that they do with these students. They plan career connection days, they take them to conferences, and when it comes down to it, we don't want our professors to be so burned out that they go someplace else or that they're not giving us the quality that we deserve. And we have great quality now, but I can see where it's starting to wear on people?
Yeah, just like an example of one of our teachers being kind of overloaded with stuff. So I think it was last semester or the year before, our academic advisor retired. And so we had no one to fill that spot yet. And so we had one of our teachers teaching undergraduate classes, being an academic advisor, in charge of the FPA club, taking us to FPA Kansas City to do all this stuff, and still meeting with like industry professionals to help us get like more funding for our school and stuff. So I mean that's way too much for one person to handle, and it was taking a toll on her when they come into classes, and that's not what we need. We need teachers that are like there and present and they're ready to teach. So that's just way too much for them to handle. So.
And it's not just one teacher that's like that. They're all like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult thing to understand when you're not in the major, because I can't tell you how many of my professors that I know on a personal level where, hey, I'm going to shoot them an email or I'm going to shoot them a call or a text or whatever, and I need something now, and they're on it. Hey, can you meet today? Because I just got an email response from a firm talking about an internship. I'm not quite sure how I should respond. They're on it. And it's honestly, it is honestly ridiculous how far they go out of their way, and they have their own lives, their personal lives, kids, family, whatever. Just for instance, this semester, I mean, I'm in my estate planning course, and we're struggling on the content. We don't have any type of recitation, anything far along the lines of that. And our professor scheduled an extra class during the week that tailored to our schedule, not to his, to our schedule, so that we could spend that extra time to learn the content so we could perform well on the exam. I just think it's a hard thing to understand, and I don't necessarily expect you to understand that, but I think that the faculty here is amongst the best in the world. I mean, they're truly incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been asked to sit on this as the needs-based scholarship person, and from the conversations I've had around the university, I think how we're going to keep students here who are on that financial bubble is going to be one of the biggest adaptive challenges going forward. And a lot of times in my conversations with people, we hold to our traditional, let's just keep funding merit-based scholarships. And of course, donors have 51% of the say on wherever those scholarships go. But for those scholarships who aren't allocated that way, and the money that will be freed up at the college level from the funding restructuring, I think it's important, and I'm speaking to you all because you're student leaders, and you are student leaders in your department, in your college, and you're some of the most knowledgeable about budgeting and different things like that. So at least to me, it's really important that we have every voice here, because as the costs keep going up, and unless we find a way to effectively push that money towards students, additional dollars towards students who are on that financial bubble, we might lose students and important voices. So I think that's important to keep in mind for this conversation, but also as you're talking with administrators and as you're brainstorming about what you're going to work on project-wise, is please work with us to try to figure out how can we best influence this so that we do retain those students who are on that financial bubble. I'm not discussing the merits of this fee because I think that's up to you, and I think we've heard a lot of things about why this is a needed fee, but I think it's important to make sure that we also try to figure out ways that we can protect those students who are on that financial bubble.
When you say needs-based scholarships, do you take into account their GPA on needs-based?
So there are many different ways to look at needs-based scholarships. You could look at it strictly based off of financial need. You could look at it strictly based off of GPA, which is a merit-based. Those are the other extremes. But I've heard of different models, such as I think the Central University is looking at a 3.5 or a 3.0 GPA model and above, and weighing that with financial need. I know Global Campus for summer programs, they were experimenting with a needs-based scholarship program where it was a 2.0 GPA and above, and identifying which students in that category who applied and submitted financial aid information had the most significant financial need, and strategically trying to select those individuals. So there's quite a range.
Is 2.0 a C?
2.0 is a,
straight C's.
Okay.
Trent, did you have a question?
Yeah,
so there are many different ways to look at it, but the bulk of our scholarship money goes to specifically metric merit-based sort of things, GPA, ACT,
But don't-
those sort of things.
I guess as a financial person, to me, it makes more sense to invest in people that are going to work hard to get those good grades to get the scholarships than to just strictly say, well, this person has a 2.0 and they need the money, so let's give it to them. Because I want somebody, if they have a 2.5 and they're willing to work their way up to a 3.0, fine, give them the money, but it just seems a little awkward to me to give money to people that aren't working hard for it.
I think what you're saying is actually.
We'll let Trent jump in here real quick.
I think I got the chance, I was student body vice president last year. We got the chance to go on the road and help raise money for those scholarships. And the hard part about it is you're right. A lot of people, a lot of industries, a lot of professionals don't look at 2.0 as a satisfactory GPA. And they're having the same facial expressions.
Yeah, I was.
But it's important to note that a lot of our students who are the recipients of need-based scholarships are working 30 to 40 hours a week. And I think a lot of us here in the room come to school, and school's our number one priority. And everything else is kind of second lead to that. But for someone who's struggling financially, if you're working 30 to 40 hours a week and you're struggling to even be here, that might be priority number one, and academics might be priority number two. Not to mention the other things that students face, especially those from low-income families.
Yeah.
Not to mention those things that they face along their journey, which may include sending money home, paying for younger siblings. So I think when you look at raising money for need-based scholarships, that's why it's hard, because a lot of times they conflict with each other. But when you look at like KU and Missouri, they have need-based scholarship programs to where if you're the recipient of a Pell Grant, you're getting everything else covered for it as long as you maintain a 2.0. And so there's donors out there who are interested and willing, and there's institutional ways to support them. But it is a paradigm shift, and I think especially from your all background where you're very you're all pursuing really excellence-oriented fields and you're very financially minded, that can be hard. But a lot of our students face really daunting challenges.
Yeah. It's just a matter of how do you eliminate fraud, because there's a lot of people that are misusing financial aid, and so how do you prevent that with scholarship money? And it just kind of seems a little weird. But I don't think we're here to debate that, so let's talk about the PFP.
Some of those disagreements probably never would, resolve. So
yeah.
I want to just I don't want to make it sound like I'm questioning the validity of your program or your faculty. I totally get that. Kinesiology, we just talked about kinesiology and that faculty. I have them personally, very large recommendation, go above and beyond. Several of them donated $5,000 just for scholarship money this past year. I think what my big kind of hesitation toward this fee is kind of one, land-grant university means as accessible as possible, and with rising fees, that's an issue. I don't need to tell you guys that because I know you're financial planners. But just kind of that barrier, and it is easier to get people in the program kind of on board. So I think that's kind of like, if you kind of see that results in your own program, I understand that too, but I just want you to understand where I'm coming from as well and kind of that viewpoint.
I think we understand the idea of trying to keep costs down, but you can't maintain quality on the cheap. So we have to invest money to keep this program at the level that it's at. That's just all there is to it.
And I think a big kind of I served on this committee in the past. I don't currently this year, but kind of looking at
this committee though.
Yeah.
Yes, this current one. I'm voting against for 2 specific meetings, but kind of looking at we see departments, people come in. I'm on privileged view. Entities come in that are, I would say, drowning. And so we look at dire need and looking at that, and I understand reputation and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my is this a dire need fund?
But we don't want to wait till we're in a dire need and then our program is already crapped out and then now we have to build it back up again. That's not what we want.
No, yeah.
It's like when you have a health issue, you don't wait until you're on your deathbed to go to the doctor. You try to fix it before it becomes a big issue. That's what we're trying to do.
Let's be honest, no one in here is going to want to pay more for their education. I know none of us do, but we understand the reason that
they're wanting to get this passed, and I understand that, and I'm for that, you know. But we need the help. We need the extra money to like fund our programs. So.
And also, our classes help us help needs-based students every day, like at Power Cut at work. So if you don't think we're aware of that, we're obviously very well aware of the people that can barely be here. But with our schooling that's so good with financial therapy and counseling and everything, that makes us even be better for the people that are super needs-based that they're seeking our help. So, I mean, if like it's kind of just preaching to the choir, that's a huge fight, but we're still, those needs-based students come to us and we help them. And don't you want them to have good help? Yeah. So, I mean, for lack of better words. Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Can we vote?
Yeah, if not, I'll seek a motion on in favor of support of the fee.
Might I just add one more?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got it scheduled till 8. It's 7:55.
We only need 2 minutes to vote, so you got 3 minutes.
So, my contract is up at the end of this year, and I'm moving on. And we currently don't have any grad student to help support the faculty. And so, and my source of funding came from elsewhere. And so we've lost 1.5 faculty members. We're also losing essentially another half faculty member, right? GTA, GRA has been 0.5 FTA, essentially 20 hours a week. So they're going to be essentially down 2 at the end of this year. And so there's that too. And so we don't have the funding to actually hire back a grad student. So the fee for next year also helps to get the grad student on, because right now these students aren't going to have me to go to or to fill in for teaching when a faculty member gets pregnant, because most of our faculty members are in their 30s. I'm filling in for a course that they're on maternity leave for the last half, but I'm capable of doing that, getting my professional experience and my certification. And I got to fill in for or teach a course last year on tax because it was my specialty. But to get grad students that understand that and can help relieve some of those teaching duties, they're not going to have, and they don't have the funds to be able to do that going forward. They can then, I'm just another resource that grad student is to the faculty.
It's going to make the problem worse if we don't get them.
So there's that piece. I think it's not 1.5. I think it's 2.0 that we're down, and that's going. And we're at capacity at graduate level, and so I think a couple of courses, my tax was at 1. 1 more student, we were at capacity. 3 more students for our capstone are at capacity. Most investment courses and stuff. A couple of years, some of the upper level classes are going to be at capacity given the growth. So, parting thoughts on that in terms of the fee, and we can put it to a vote. Thanks, Jonathan.
Not a problem. Not a problem. With that, is there a motion in support or opposed to the fee?
I'll make a motion to. What was the? Sorry,
in support or opposed?
In support of the fee.
Sweet. Is there a second? It's moved and seconded to support the fee. Is there any debate?
Can I clarify that this is $20 per credit hour?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's just zero.
Second, third, fourth, fifth.
Is there any further debate?
The name of who seconded, sorry.
Christina Glenn.
If there's no further debate, we're ready to vote whenever you are.
Becker? Oh, sorry. It'll be just yes or no in support of the $20 increase. Becker?
Yes.
Geehee? Oh, yes. Mormon?
Yes.
Garrett?
Yes.
Meek?
Yes.
Giardino?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes.
McIntyre?
No.
Klein? Works?
Yes.
Albers?
No.
Thomas?
Yes.
Haynes? Vote passes 11-2-0.
All right. With that, thank you all so much for your time. We appreciate it. And we'll be sending, to answer some of those questions, we'll be sending a follow-up survey in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that. We'd love to hear more feedback on how this process went.
So when does this go to the president?
So this will go to the president.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, so that kind of process is, this goes back to the larger tuition and fees group, where we look at, basically, was the process followed accordingly? So like, with input, outreach, discussion here, which kind of the comment we were having earlier. And then once that happens, we'll take it to the president here in the next couple of weeks once we establish tuition, and that'll go to the board of regents in April or
If we
May.
follow the traditional May 2nd is when our tuition proposal is due to the board. But if the legislature continues to be in session, they generally don't ask us to submit it until after it's ended, so it could be later.
Okay.
I'm anticipating later.
Will we be notified of how it turned out? Or,
Yep, we'll keep you informed of the process.
or do we just have to watch our tuition go up?
That too.
I will not pass. I will not vote to pass this fee until we have more funding for higher education.
Okay.
Is that resolution was so
Yeah.
I saw that today.
It's a constitutional amendment. Yeah, they're not even gonna consider it now. Yeah.
That's
Will
what
the
the
House
Senate
pass it?
said. The Senate
You know what? You know what? That could have been a passable amendment if they would have stuck their guns into the higher like everybody said they were doing. So we should screw them.
The constitutional
Not a resolution.
amendment.
Yeah. But then the Senate said, yeah, then they said, we're not gonna look at that until you pass a resolution.
Right.
It's got into some really.